Ilara sat at the small wooden desk in her apartment, the city lights of New York flickering like distant stars outside the window. Rain tapped against the glass in uneven rhythms, mirroring the chaos inside her chest. She had been staring at the blank page for 43 minutes. The cursor blinked at her like an impatient witness. She wanted to write about the moment her mother had died 3 weeks ago. Not the fact. Those were simple enough. Hospital. Tubes. Last breath. English could handle facts. But the feeling? That was something else entirely. It wasn't sadness. Sadness was a word you used when your favorite team lost or when your phone fell in the toilet. What Ilara carried was bigger, heavier, and far more alive. It was a wild, velvet creature that lived behind her ribs, expanding and contracting, sometimes purring, sometimes roaring. It had claws made of memory and fur made of every unsaid, "I love you." English had no cage large enough for it. She typed anyway. "I miss her." Delete. "The absence is unbearable." Delete. "There's a hole shaped exactly like my mother and nothing fits inside it." She stared at that last sentence. It was almost right, but still pathetic. The hole wasn't shaped like her mother. Her mother had been laughter at 6 a.m. while making coffee, the smell of coconut oil in her hair, the way she could silence an entire room with one raised eyebrow. The hole was shaped like every version of Ilara that only existed in her mother's eyes. How do you write that? Ilara closed her laptop and walked to the balcony. The rain had softened into a drizzle. She tried speaking out loud, the way people do in movies when they are having epiphanies. "I feel like," she started, then stopped. "Like what? Like drowning in A? Like being hugged and stabbed at the same time? Like the universe had reached into her and pulled out a thread she didn't know was holding everything together?" None of it sounded right. The grammar itself fought her. Subjects and objects. Verbs in neat little tenses. Past, present, future. Neat boxes for messy things. But grief didn't live in time. It lived in a place where yesterday, today, and forever all sat on the same worn sofa, drinking tea and refusing to leave. Her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Priya. "How are you holding up?" Ilara stayed at the question. Holding up, as if she were a shelf, as if the feeling were something she could grip with 2 hands and keep from falling. She typed back, "I'm okay," and immediately hated herself for it. The truest thing she had written all night was a lie. Later that night, she dreamed of her mother. In the dream, they sat on the floor of their old house in Brooklyn, surrounded by words. English words, Spanish words, even fragments of the Punjabi her grandmother used to mutter. The words floated like fireflies, beautiful but useless. Every time Ilara tried to catch one to describe her love, it burned her fingers and flew away. Her mother laughed in that dream laugh of hers. "Beta, some things are meant to stay inside the body. That's why we have hearts. They don't need grammar." Ilara woke up crying at 3:17 a.m., the kind of crying that shakes the whole skeleton. She didn't reach for her laptop this time. Instead, she opened the old trunk under her bed and pulled out her mother's red dupatta. She wrapped it around herself, breathing in the faint trace of sandalwood that still clung to the fabric after all these years. For the first time since a funeral, she didn't try to name the feeling. She just let it be enormous. The next morning, she met her cousin Arjun for coffee. He asked the same question everyone asked. "How are you?" This time, Ilara didn't answer with words. She took his hand and placed it over her own heart. It was beating hard, irregular, alive with too much. Arjun's eyes widened slightly. He didn't pull away. For 30 full seconds, they sat like that. No sentences, no grammar, no English or any other language trying to shrink the thing between them. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "It's too big." "Huh?" Elora smiled for the first time in weeks. Yes, it's too big. She never finished the piece she was trying to write about her mother. Instead, she started carrying a small notebook where she wrote only fragments, half-sentences, broken thoughts, single words surrounded by white space. The emptiness on the page became as important as the words. Sometimes she drew instead. A storm cloud with teeth, a river made of hands, a heart so large it cracked the borders of the paper. One day, months later, a young writer asked her for advice. How do you write about feelings that are bigger than language? Elora thought about it for a long time. You don't, she said finally. You make the reader feel the size of the failure. You show them the cage, and then you let them hear the creature roaring outside it. The best writing doesn't capture the feeling. It confesses that it can't. She looked out the window at the New York traffic, honking, chaotic, overflowing with life that no traffic light could ever fully control. English grammar is a beautiful, limited thing, she told the young writer. Like a teacup, perfect for holding coffee, terrible for holding oceans. That night, back at her desk, Elora opened her laptop and typed a new title. Why Your Feelings Are Too Big for the Limited Reach of English Grammar. She stared at it, smiled, and then wrote nothing underneath. Some stories, she had finally learned, are best told by leaving the page mostly blank. No matter how perfect your English is, how rich your vocabulary, or how beautiful your grammar, there will always be moments in life that English cannot fully capture. The deep love for your mother, the pain of losing someone, the quiet joy that makes your heart feel like it might explode. And that's okay, because real English is not about saying everything perfectly. Real English is about being brave enough to express what you can, even when you know the words are not enough. So the next time you struggle to speak English, the next time you can't find the right words, the next time you feel my English is not good enough, remember Lemai. Remember that even native speakers cannot fully describe their deepest feelings. Language has limits, but your courage doesn't. So keep speaking, keep writing, keep trying. Even broken English can carry enormous feelings if it comes from the heart. Smile gently, look directly at camera. Thank you for watching this story on Let's English. If this story touched you, please like, share, and tell me in comments. What is one feeling you find difficult to express in English? I read every comment. And remember, you don't need perfect English to speak beautifully. You only need a true heart and the willingness to try. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, keep learning, keep feeling, and keep speaking. This is Let's English, where we don't just learn English. We learn to express our soul in English. Goodbye for now, and take care.